It is a privilege to be here. I want you to know how much we are just thrilled to be a part of everything that's going on here at Utah State University. Mentors International is just deeply pleased and deeply grateful for the relationship that we have with Mike and Andy and the SEED program. It has been just so much fun for us. Insofar as Mentors International is concerned, Utah State University is the best university in Utah. And I think I could go so far as to say, are there other universities in Utah? We just love being here. We are thrilled and excited about all that the SEED students do. Can this be forwarded to the first slide, my first slide that's got my name on it? Or can I? There we go. So, I'm grateful to be here with Chris Dunn. Chris is our Chief Operating Officer. If you get a chance to visit with him, he's a really interesting guy at Mentors International. I'm nowhere near the most interesting guy he is. And so grateful to have him here with us today. But as I was saying about SEED students, one of the things we are most grateful for is the great work that they're doing out there and the lives that they're touching and the impact that they're having. And you've just seen a wonderful video. I'd like to show you a video of some of the things that the SEED students are doing. I think you'll really like it. Let's see if this will forward the way it should. This was a great group of students that were helping us warm up a crowd for a Shark Tank event that we had that I learned about while I was here. And so they were helping us warm up the crowd. This particular group is very special to me. And they're in the Dominican Republic currently. And the reason why they're so special to me is this little one. This is my girl. This is my youngest daughter. That's Sydney and her husband, Joshua. Now I'm getting emotional. Okay, stop. They're in the Dominican Republic having the time of their lives. They're currently, where they're at right here is Casa Nuestra Esperanza. Casa Nuestra Esperanza is also a refuge home for women who are formerly trafficked. And so they're working and teaching them skills and helping them do the things that they need to do in order to be able to rehabilitate and go and find productive ways to do things with their lives. I want to talk about brands tonight to begin with. This is a representation of just many of the brands that are out there in the world today. Now, one of the things that you'll notice about brands as a whole is that brands not only are out there, they're invading our lives. And they invade my home, they invade my cell phone, they invade my computer. I was talking to my son via instant message. Yes, I do Facebook. But I was talking to my son via instant message and told him that I wanted to go on a cruise sometime this year to Alaska. 5 minutes afterwards, I got an ad on my Instagram feed for a cruise to Alaska. And I'm thinking, they have invaded my life. My wife says that we no longer say, Alexa, please play Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. She says, government spy, please play Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, because she knows that someone is listening to us. Now, brands, if it's any indication as to how important this is, $5.5 million. $5.5 million for a 30-second ad at the Super Bowl. 30 seconds. Okay. That's a lot of money, and that's the extent that a lot of these brands will go to invade your lives, or to become a part of your life, or to become part of your daily life. And that's fine, so long as you get to make the choice. Most of these brands think that they're going to be long-living. If you were to look at a lot of these, Palm, for example, there's no such thing as Palm Pilots anymore. They think they're going to be long-living, but for the most part, their shelf life is pretty short. Now, let's see if I can. These were the top 7 brands in 2019, okay, by Ascension. Apple was the number 1, Google, all the way down to Toyota. I didn't put the top 10 because it was boring to do 10, so I did 7. So the top 7 brands are these. Now, if you'll notice, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, none of them made the top 10 even, okay? And combined, all of these folks spent $34.6 billion in advertising costs. $34.6 billion, these 7 organizations. And so, go more. There we go. You can do that. $10 billion just by Amazon alone. And it's no wonder they're not profitable. But $10 billion on their marketing. And Coca-Cola spends 18.3% of their total marketing, or their total revenues on marketing. Now, that is a lot of money, and that's a lot of effort and a lot of cash to spend to try to become famous and to become a part of your lives on a day in, day out basis. Next. We're going to roll through some of these. These are some of the brands that I have represented over the years. We'll stop at that one, okay? I've represented Rolex, a watch company. The most expensive Rolex watch I ever sold was $150,000. I've represented Patek Philippe Watch Company. They only make about 30,000 watches worldwide. The most expensive Patek Philippe I ever sold was $500,000. The ad by De Beers is, that one is one of my favorites, okay? If you read that. God created woman, then after several million years of practice, he created yours, okay? Now, that's a good ad to help you want to go and spend 2 months' salary, which they say is what you need to spend for an engagement ring, 2 months' salary. Now, for some of you young ladies, that's a good deal. For some of you, I'm sorry, okay? Especially if you got, well, I'm just sorry. Mikimoto, one of the finest pearl brands, actually the finest pearl brand in the world. A single pearl, I have seen single pearls that are valued at $20,000 to $30,000. A single pearl, okay? Please. Here's another brand. I've represented Tiffany & Company. I've represented Cartier. Hang on that one. I've represented Harry Winston. Okay. Next one, please. I've represented a company out of Kansas City. It was called Tivol. They were a 100-year-old organization at the time I began working for them. Next one, please. I ran the retail operations for O.C. Tanner for a number of years and luxury retail jewelry. And I have even represented God himself on a couple of occasions, okay? Now, though, it's a pretty good brand, I'd say. Now I get the privilege of representing Mentors International. I really love this organization. I truly love this organization. Now, before I go to the next slide, Mentors International is an organization that's been around for 30 years. This is our 30th year. And you're going to learn a little bit more about what we do. The brand itself is well known. It's prestigious. It's a storied brand. It has some great stories behind it. We'll share some of those this evening. But as important as these brands are, and I have represented some of the finest brands in the world. I have represented some of the absolute finest brands in the world. And I've enjoyed every single one of them. My message to you this evening, the most important thing that I will talk with you about this evening has to do with the most important brand that you will ever represent, and that is you. You are the most important brand you will ever represent. It doesn't matter what the product is. If your personal brand is lacking, if your personal brand is weak, if your personal brand can't stand the heat of the kitchen, then it doesn't matter what you represent, what product you represent, what you sell, the service, or anything. Your personal brand has to be absolutely 100% without fail intact. I'm not talking perfect. I'm not a perfect brand. I'm not perfect in my own personal representation, but I work very, very hard. The question I have for most of us, all of us, is this. If Coca-Cola is willing to spend almost a full fifth of all of their revenues in marketing their brand, am I willing to spend a fifth of my time in developing my own personal brand? Am I making the effort to develop me? There are a lot of people who say that if I represent one of the top 10 brands, I'm assured success. And there are others who will say that if I'm not representing one of the best brands in the world, then I'm doomed for failure. And both groups are wrong. I've seen some people who are representing the finest brands in the world who are inept, inadequate, and not capable, and they fail miserably. And I have seen others who have a tremendous personal brand, and have success, no matter the product that they're offering. Because it is that personal brand that will ultimately bring you the success that you're hoping to find. Let's go to the next slide. So, what makes a strong brand? Now, there are any number of different studies and surveys that you can look at for this. And quite candidly, I believe that what makes a strong brand is most personal. Now, I'm going to share with you what I believe makes a strong brand. And again, there are any number of different surveys that will tell you what it is that makes a strong brand. But I'm going to share with you what I believe personally makes up a strong personal brand. Some of the articles you read will tell you there are 10 things that you need to have. There are 20 things that you need to have. There are some things that you just absolutely don't violate. There are other things that you must do. Okay? But I have 4. These are the 4. The first one is you have to have a clear identity. Thank you very much. The first one is you have to have a clear identity. Second, focus on your audience. 3, always be consistent. And 4, keep your promises. And we're going to talk briefly about every single one of these. Now, I'm not talking about Rolex or Patek Philippe. I'm talking about me. And so when an organization says you have to have a clear identity, they're talking about the brand itself. And so when you're talking about Coca-Cola, you know what their clear identity is, okay? It's addicting. It's bad for you. I'm just kidding. You know what their clear identity is, but I'm talking about what is your clear identity. I'll give you 2 examples. My wife, at 37 years old, was diagnosed with breast cancer. You're not supposed to get breast cancer that young, and no one in her family had ever suffered from breast cancer. She had to go through some radical procedures in order to take care of it, a long period of time of recuperation and reconstruction. And at the end of the day, because she was so young, they counseled my wife that she needed to go to groups, therapy groups, so that she could decompress, come to terms, understand, figure it out. And so she went. She went to the first one, she didn't like it. She went to the second one, she hated it. She went to the third one, said she'll never go back. And this is why. Too many of those women, and I'm not saying this isn't good for some, it just wasn't good for Sherry. Too many of those women have been going to those meetings for 15 and 20 years. Their identity was being a cancer survivor. And my wife did not want to have that identity. That is not who she is. That's not what she wants to be, and she didn't want to be characterized for the rest of her life or be living with the idea of being a cancer survivor, even though she is. She's been asked the question, I can't tell you how many times, what happens? Do you worry about if you're going to get cancer? And her response, again, do you worry about if you're going to get cancer again? Her response is, I didn't worry about it the first time. Why would I worry about it this time? That's her identity. That's the identity that she has decided is hers. And so she decided not to go to those meetings anymore. And that was good for her. Years ago, I was working for that organization in Kansas City. The name of the company is called Tivel. I was their director of sales. I had helped them with any number of different sales objectives. And every year there was a specific catalog that came out for the holidays that we introduced. It was a big to-do, there was a big party, there was a big unveiling, everybody got to see the catalog, there was a lot of applause, there was a lot of excitement, and then there was a sales plan that was put in play. That was a sales plan that I devised and had always been successful. I devised it, it had always been successful. This year the catalog comes out and my stomach just went sick when I saw what was the catalog. The catalog was obviously a catalog that featured a lot of beautiful jewelry, but on the pages was an image of a woman who was not dressed, with sensitive parts that were darkened over, and the jewelry that was laid out over this woman. The catalog represented just fine the organization, but it did not represent me. It did not represent my values. It did not represent my identity. And so I went to the CEO of the chairman of the board of the organization. His name is Harold, the patriarch of the company. And I said, Harold, we need to talk. I can't send this catalog to my clients. He said, well, why not? I said, Harold, in my opinion, my personal opinion, this does not represent me. Well, why not? To me, Harold, this is not appropriate. What do you mean it's not appropriate? And I told him I felt like it just wasn't appropriate and I couldn't do it. And he got mad at me. And he said to me, Curtis, what do you mean you're not going to send this catalog? You have to send it. This is your program. This is what you do. You have to send this catalog out to everybody. I said, Harold, I can't. He says, you will. I said, Harold, I can't. But you know you will. I said, no, Harold, I won't. And we went back and forth like that. He said, I'll tell you what, Curtis, I'll give you 24 hours to come up with the right decision. And you know what the right decision is, don't you? You come back here tomorrow and you tell me the right answer. So I went home, talked to my wife, showed her the catalog, and I said, honey, I can't do it. She says, you're right, you can't do it. You know what's going to happen. Harold could fire us. We thought about it. We contemplated it. We didn't sleep much that night. We prayed. And at the end of the day, the next morning, I go back to Harold. I walk into his office, and I say to Harold, actually, Harold said to me, you better have the right decision. Harold, I can't do it. So he hung his head. And there was silence. And I'm thinking, here it comes. He's going to fire me. And he says, I know you can't do it, Curtis. I know you can't do it. The reason why we like you so much is because you're a man of integrity and you do the things the way we like things done. Now, let me just tell you this. You don't have to send the catalog out to your clients, but you better come up with an alternative, and it better be good. Fortunately for my wife and I, we thought it through. We came to the table with an alternative. Sales were better than they'd ever been. But for sticking to my identity, as a result, Harold gave me one opportunity after another, after another, after another that shouldn't have come to a dumb kid like me, because I was willing to stick to my guns. I was willing to stick to my identity. Those are the things that help define what your identity is. And you have to be the one that decides it, and you have to be the one that sticks with it. Focus on your audience. I believe in not only one-on-one, but one by one. And I'm not talking about the masses. When a brand talks about focus on your audience, they're talking about the avatar. They're talking about what it is that makes up the perfect client demographically for our product. And they can come up with the avatar. And they can tell you what their household income is. They can tell you whether they're male or female. They can tell you what age they are. And they can tell you all these things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one by one and the one-on-one audience that you have, because that's where the biggest impact will come. This same mentor, Harold, one of my mentors, Harold, that almost fired me, used to tell me this. He would say, and I've always kept this in mind, if price and product are the same, relationship trumps. Now think about that. If price and product are the same, then relationship trumps. And there's no way for me to develop a relationship with somebody who's going to buy a $500,000 Patek Philippe watch, texting them, emailing them, or just sending them some kind of link that they need to take a look at. I have to have a one-on-one, one-by-one experience with that individual and develop that rapport. I have to, in order for me to have that kind of an impact. So that at the end of the day, when it comes time for him to make a purchase, he knows who to come to. Now, I've had people who come to me and they'll say, Curtis, I have no idea what my wife wants. You do. Here's $20,000. Just have it ready to go on Christmas Eve, and I'll be by around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that comes from having focused on your audience and having had that kind of a relationship that gives you that kind of trust that allows you to make that kind of a transaction. I was asked a little earlier, how do you network people? I don't really feel like I network people. I just treat people with respect. I treat them, when I'm with an individual, I'm with that individual. One by one, one-on-one also means that when I'm with that individual, I focus on that person. And there is a lot of reciprocal action that occurs as a result of that kind of relationship. Now, for your age group, and I know I'm going to sound old when I say this, for your age group, that's hard. It's challenging. But I will guarantee you that as you can develop that kind of an ability to focus on your audience, and I'm not just talking about your customers. This works with my wife. Okay? When my wife and I talk, I put my phone away. It works with my kids, and it works with my grandkids. And it's very, very helpful in me developing the kinds of relationships that won't just last a cycle, but will last a lifetime. With O.C. Tanner, the company I used to work for, the average jewelry store life cycle for an individual as a client is 3 years. With O.C. Tanner, our average life cycle for a client was 10 plus years because we would focus on the individual. Always be consistent. Nobody likes somebody who flip-flops. And one day they're this and another day they're that. One day I had one of my very, very finest clients who wanted me to sell him, we talked about this a little earlier, a synthetic diamond. I don't do those. Okay? I was telling the young man I was talking to today, if a young man comes to me and he says, I want to buy a diamond, I'd like to take a look at one of those synthetic ones. And if one of you bought one of those, I'm so sorry with what I'm about to say. I really apologize, but I don't. And so the young man will say to me, I'm thinking about buying a synthetic diamond. And I'll say to him, well, let me ask you a question. Is your fiance the real deal? Yeah? Then why do you want to buy her fake diamond? Okay? So, I'm sorry. That's the way I feel. Actually, I'm not sorry. That's just the way I feel. So, but this gentleman wanted one of my best clients. He said, Curtis, I want to buy a synthetic diamond for my wife. And I said, I don't do those. Curtis, I buy a lot of jewelry from you. Sorry, I don't do those. You know why I don't do those? I don't do them. And so I won't sell you that. But Curtis, I'll have to go buy it somewhere else. I understand. I get it. And he didn't, okay, because of the relationship, because I've always focused on him, okay. He ended up buying something worthy of his wife, okay. But you got to stick to your guns, always be consistent. If your identity is clear, you can't be inconsistent with that identity. And last, you got to keep your promises. That's just all there is to it. I'm going to tell you a quick story. There's a word, write it down, mazal, M-A-Z-A-L. In the jewelry industry, I would travel the world and buy diamonds. And in the jewelry industry, there's this magnificent word, and it is mazal. It's a Yiddish word, okay? It means your word, your integrity, your honor. Okay? Your word, your integrity, your honor. It's mazal. That's all it is. If I go and I want to buy a $150,000 condo in Provo, Utah, which I've done, I have to sign a stack of papers about that deep. I pay cash for it, but I still have to sign all these papers. But if I want to go to Belgium, if I go to Antwerp, Belgium, and I want to buy $1 million worth of diamonds because of my brand, because of who I am, I can put out my hand and I say one word, mazal. And I don't have to sign a single paper. Not a note, nothing. And that's the way the business works. Now, if I break my mazal, I'll be blackballed. Now, something that can't happen in the United States, it happens in Antwerp, okay? If I break my mazal, if I don't keep my promise, if I say to my vendor, I'm going to pay you in 30 days and I pay him in 31, on the 32nd day, my picture will go up on the wall of the diamond bourse and it will say, this man does not keep his mazal. Okay? And everybody in the diamond bourse now knows that I don't keep my promises. So with that one word, mazal, I can buy $1 million. I don't know how many. I could probably buy $2 million worth of diamonds if I wanted to, with one word and a handshake, look him in the eye. There's nothing worse than saying mazal, but just, they don't believe that. You have to give him a handshake, look him in the eye, and you say mazal. That's my word. That's my bond. And that's the way my industry, the jewelry industry, worked all the time. Now, just quickly, let's see if this is going to work. Oh, turn on. It's green, so that shows on, doesn't it? Okay, wait a minute. Just go through until it gets to the word memorable. Here's some other things that you might want to consider right there. Not results-oriented, results-focused. We don't have time. You've got to be genuine. You have to be direct. And I'm not saying mean, you just be clear. Just be direct with people. And people prefer another individual who's absolutely direct with them. That's okay. And some people feel like they can't do that because it's not polite. It's polite to be direct. It's impolite to not be direct. Okay? My grandfather used to say there's a difference between telling the truth and being nice. Okay? Do you want me to tell you? He'd say, boy, do you want me to tell you the truth or do you want me to be nice? No, tell me the truth. It might not be nice. Okay? Why do you say that, Grandpa? Well, you remember the lady who was over at the house the other day? Yeah. And you remember she asked me if I liked her dress? Yeah. And I told her yes? Yeah. I was being nice. Okay? So be direct. Hardy means, you know what the U.S. Army is saying about your age group right now? This is the U.S. Army, so I'm not saying it's true. A high degree, a high lack of resilience in this age group is what they're finding. And so to be hardy means to be able to, here's one of my favorite quotes. It doesn't matter how hard you hit, it matters how hard you get hit, and keep going. Who's that?
Rocky.
There you go, Rocky Balboa. One of my favorite hits, one of my favorite quotes. Okay? So you got to be hardy. But then at the end of the day, you have to be memorable. And I wish we had time to talk about it. We don't. But being memorable means that every encounter you have with that person is meaningful in some way. Okay? It's got to be as meaningful as possible. Now, sometimes it's, I'll be there in 10 minutes. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you're reaching out to one of your clients or to someone you love or to someone that is important to you, you want those to be memorable experiences as often as humanly possible. Okay? So, let's see. Before we go to let's go to the next slide. I want to show 3 videos. I think we have time for those 3 videos. And I want you to tell me, actually, we're not going to the videos yet. Let's see, does this work? I want to tell you a little bit about Mentors International. I can do this in 3 minutes. Mentors International helps people go from poverty to sustainable self-reliance. Not self-reliance, sustainable self-reliance. Self-reliance isn't good enough unless we get to sustainable, okay? And the gap between poverty and sustainable self-reliance is very difficult to bridge. And so we strive to build a bridge. But what happens with most people is as they go along the bridge, they can only get so far on their own. And so what we do is we add a component called mentoring, where we actually hire somebody who comes in and mentors and stands next to that individual and helps them through the process of building a business or getting a job, improving their business or improving their job, and managing the resources that they receive. Now, I grew up in a dysfunctional home. Okay? Parents divorced when I was 5. Dad left and he was gone. In the 50 years afterwards, I saw him once. If I bumped into him on the street, I'd have never known who he was. But Mom couldn't keep a job. And then when my mom did get a job, she didn't know what to do with the paycheck. She didn't know at all what to do with the paycheck. And we go to Kentucky Fried Chicken now. As a kid, we loved it. We got paid, so we're going to KFC, but on the way home, we'd go buy a TV and we'd go get a couch. But then things were worse. And so our mentors help individuals learn the skills that they need to learn so that they can manage their resources and cross this divide, this great divide, through either education in some regards or microfinance, financial solutions, capital infusion for their business to help accelerate the growth. And so when we bring the mentor in, because education is a good thing with really impoverished people, but it doesn't guarantee success. But a mentor by their side almost always guarantees success, almost always. And so as that mentor continues to work with them, they make it further along the way until they can cross the bridge and get to sustainable self-reliance. That, in a nutshell, is what Mentors International does. In the next video, I'm going to show you a video about a woman named Zorka from Peru. And then I want you to tell me, how did she develop her personal brand? What are some of the things that you saw her do to develop her personal brand? Oh, wait a minute, that gets you across the bridge. Okay, perfect. He wasn't afraid to ask for help. No one can do it alone. There's no such thing as a one-man show, okay? What else? Please.
Recognize his weakness.
Okay. Most of us aren't willing to do that, but you're right. We have to recognize our weakness. But is he going to be limited by his weakness? Because he's got muscular dystrophy. Was he going to allow himself to be limited by his weaknesses? Okay, no. That's part of his identity. What else? Please. I'm sorry? He gave back to his daughter. You want to know the mentality of the really poor? Is they always want to give back. Okay? There are studies that show that if you put a $20 bill in the streets of New York City and someone in my socioeconomic status walks by, I take the $20 bill, I put it in my wallet, and I'm grateful for my good fortune. But if I'm homeless and I run into a $20 bill, I take that $20 bill, I go down to Burger King, I buy 20 burgers, and I share them with my friends. And that's typically what happens with those who are really, truly poor. They want to share their good fortune with others around them. What else? Please. He started with what he had. Okay, too many people are waiting for the sun to come up. Too many people are waiting for circumstances to get better. You can't, listen, if he can do what he's doing from his circumstances, we can do what we need to do from our circumstances. So he got help and he also put in the work. We can't be afraid to do the work, and we can't be afraid to ask for the help. Anyone else?
He was determined to change his lot in life.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Your name is? He was determined to change his lot in life. You are?
Bryce.
Bryce. So Bryce, I'm going to ask you a question. Does he have any hope of changing his lot in life, do you think?
I would say probably their culture doesn't, but it seemed that he did. He knew that by selling things that was begging on the street, like I said, he could potentially change things like better and
Yeah.
those around him better.
Insofar as the world is concerned, he's got no hope. But then there are those people who, against all hope, believe in hope. Okay? And there are some great stories about people who, against hope, believed in hope. For example, I hate it when people say to me, Curtis, be realistic. Okay? I hate the word realistic. I don't think the word realistic really is realistic. Okay? And when people say to me, be realistic, I'm asking, well, what is realism? What is it truly? What I think most people are saying when they tell me to be realistic is, Curtis, I've settled for something less. I've settled for something a little bit more relaxed. I wouldn't say I've compromised, but I have settled. And I would feel a whole lot better about myself if you would settle for something less. Because these ideas that you've got, they're pretty cool, but they make me feel uncomfortable. So if you would just be more realistic, that would make me feel comfortable. And so when most people tell you be realistic, stop and weigh that out for a second. What are they really telling me to do? A very wise man said, we need to idealize the real and realize the ideal. We need to idealize the real and realize the ideals. Quick story. O.C. Tanner, 30-year-old organization. They'd done $9.8 million in sales. I come on as their new vice president of retail operations, and they say to me, we'd like to have a business plan. Tell us what you think we can do. I study it for 90 days. I come back and I go to the board of directors, in front of the whole board of directors, to this big organization, and I say, in 10 years or less, we're going to get to $20 million in sales. Everybody said, thank you very much. I went back to my office. I got a phone call from my CEO, and he says, you need to come see me. I said, okay, fine. I went to go see him. And he said, Curtis, you have lost total credibility with the board of directors. Well, why? Because your goal of $20 million is not realistic. Well, what do you mean it's not realistic? They would feel better if you gave them a more realistic goal. Well, what do you think is realistic? Well, you know, Curtis, we've been around for 30 years. We're at 9.8 million, maybe $11 million, 11.5 maybe. Okay, I'll tell you what, Kent. You have your goal. I'm going to have my goal. If you want me to do that, that's what we'll do. A month later, I go back to the board of directors and I say, we're going to do $11,500,000 in sales, and that's our goal. And there was applause. They patted me on the back. A couple of them gave me a hug. They said, congratulations, go get them. You're going to do a good job. And they all felt better because I was realistic. We hit 12 million the next year. By the time I left OC 10 or 9 years later, we had hit $20 million. Don't let anybody tell you what realistic is. You decide what realistic is within your own realm. Now, it's not likely, it's not realistic that next year I'm going to be the starting quarterback at the Super Bowl. I get that, okay? But within my realm, please don't tell me what I have to decide is realistic, okay? You decide what that is, and then go for it. And don't let anybody dissuade you. Please don't let anybody say to you, be realistic, when for the most part, they're just saying, please settle. Because I've settled, and I'll feel better if you do as well. Okay? Let's go to the next one. Same question. What did you learn? What did you learn? These are women who have been trafficked.
But they're just women who are just trying to do anything they can for their family, and they think that they have no other option. But it's supposed to give them free help, and they're willing to do anything they can.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, one of the things that helps you to better clearly identify your identity, or clearly define your identity, is to find your passion. With every single one of these women that I've ever run into, their passion to really put something together is their family. Okay? They really want to do, what do they want more than anything? They don't want their daughters to have to do what they did. They don't want their kids to have to suffer through what they suffered. And so they're willing to pay the price now in order to help make that change. What else? Please.
They have a willingness to learn. They've made willingness part of their identity.
So let me ask you a question. So they do have a willingness to learn, but after one of these women at the Mercy Workshop, 20 years in prostitution. She started at 16 years old. She's got 2 sets of twins and another boy. They didn't even know she was a prostitute for the whole time they went through school. She would get up. She would when the kids went off to school, she would go to sleep. She would be up before they got home. When they go to bed at nighttime, she'd hit the streets, and she did that for 20 years. How can she have hope? How can she have the will to do that? I am daily impressed at the strength of human will. And when we think we're at the bottom, when we think we are absolutely nowhere, anywhere, so that we can improve and become what we want to become, we've got 45-year-old women who spent 20 years in prostitution who say to themselves, I can do better. I can build a new life. I can be happy. They told me about this woman. When she came in, someone said she will never smile again. You should have seen the smile on her face when I met her. Okay? The strength of human will is incredible. Okay? Anything else? Then let's go to the picture of the dumb kid. That's me. Okay? 14 years old and I just got a haircut. My mom made me. So I don't know what I'm holding. I think it's some skeleton that I found in the desert. When I was just a kid, like I said, I grew up in a dysfunctional home. And and bell bottoms, by the way, those were cool. So I probably spent $12 for those, and those were cool. When I was 14 years old, a religious leader gave me this book. It's called I Dare You. Now, don't go out and buy it because you'll find it boring, okay? It's old and it's dated. But this book helped me out. It helped me decide that there had to be something that I had to do to change me so that I could get what I knew that I wanted to have. Next slide. That's what I wanted. There's no way in this world, go back, there's no way in this world that kid gets this, next slide, without doing something to change who he was in order to be able to have that kind of... This is my most prized possession in my home right now, is this picture. I love this picture. This book, I Dare You, dared me to make a change. You pick up the book, and this religious leader didn't tell me this was going to happen. It dares you to finish the book before you put it down. I was so mad because it was like 10 o'clock at night when I picked it up. But it dared me to finish the book, so I finished the book. But at the end of the day, it dared me to do something right then, right now, to make a change in my life that would have a permanent impact. Now that was big for me. And I've had a lot of books that I've read that are important to me, including scripture, but a lot of books that I've read. This one, given to me when I was 14 years old, this is the book. Okay? And each one of my boys have this book. Another book that they've got is called The Strenuous Life by Theodore Roosevelt. It's just a talk that he gave. It's a great, great talk that he gave. But this doesn't happen unless we change who we are inside and we work hard to become personally what we need to become. The best way to guarantee success is not in the product that you represent, not even in the thing that you do for your vocation. The best thing to guarantee success is developing within yourself a strong personal brand that will stand the test of time. Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions? So I'm told we have time for questions. Does anyone have a question? And one of the things I liked about what Mike said is that you all have to stay until I'm done. And there's ice cream afterwards. But any questions? Please.
So what is the difference between self-reliant and sustainable self-reliance?
So self-reliance is not necessarily a destination, it's a journey. And most people that we work with have been impoverished multi-generationally. One of the things that we hear the most, that is most gratifying, is when a father says, I was poor all my life, my dad was poor all his life, and his father was poor all his life, but my children have options. That's likely the most important thing that we hear. But if they achieve self-reliance today, and in 2 months down the road, they didn't learn the skills that they needed to learn in order to sustain that self-reliance, we were of no value to them. So it's an absolute, it's a laser beam focus for us that it's not about self-reliance. It's sustainable self-reliance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Question?
Back to the establishing a clear identity. How would you say is the best way to go about that? The time in our lives where we feel like our identities may be really fluid or experiencing rapid growth. How do you establish that clear identity at this time?
So when I was your age, I knew everything, okay? And I knew what I was going to be. I was going to be an oceanographer, okay? I didn't do that. And I knew that later that I was going to be a forest ranger, and then I was going to be a psychologist, okay? Now, in terms of vocation, that's one thing, okay? What I'm trying to get at is it doesn't really matter what you end up doing. What matters is who you are, okay? And so that can come in a lot of different ways. And it's okay if it's in a state of flux. It's just so long as you're true to yourself in the moment. Somebody asked me a little while ago, and they said they like my Batman cufflinks, okay? The reason why I wear Batman cufflinks, I'm being true to my 6-year-old self, okay? It wasn't that I liked Batman when I was 6 years old. I was Batman when I was 6 years old, okay? And so at that time, that's who I was. And so you have to be true to yourself. And it's okay to make adjustments. You'll make adjustments time and time and time again. Just be consistent and true to those adjustments, okay? The one thing I'll tell you, it's impossible to successfully go from a good brand to a minimized brand, okay? It's impossible to have any success taking something that's really good and deteriorating its quality. A couple of examples. O.J. Simpson, okay? Another example, Miley Cyrus. I was going to bring an image of Miley Cyrus, but there wasn't anything appropriate that I could show you, okay? But if you go from a high level to a lower level, you will have nothing but misery, and you cannot be successful. And recuperating that loss is infinitely difficult. It's just so hard to do. So whatever it is that you're at, you just want to maintain that until you decide what else you want to do. Does that make sense?
It's like integrity to the character that you developed.
In the moment. Yeah, absolutely. Other questions? One more. Another question. Or not? Please.
Looking at your self-identity, what's your best advice to look at where you're lacking and where
So just a couple things you can say. Number one, there are only two people you cannot lie to, you and God. Okay? You just can't. And so one of the things that I do is I look myself in the mirror. I make myself look myself in the mirror, and I make my assessment because I can't lie to myself. Okay? You can pretend like you're lying to yourself, but you can't. Okay? That's one thing that I would say. But I was asked a question earlier, where did I go to college? And I'm sorry, Mike, I'm going to say this, but I quit college. Okay, I'm not a college graduate. But if the salsa queen can say it, I guess I can too. So I quit college, but I'm an insatiable learner. And I will not, I love to learn. So I always look for new things that I can learn throughout the process. If you stop learning, you will die, in my personal opinion. Okay, thank you very much.